a scion of many worlds. Lovely day, isn't it? He asks the woman who sits down on the bench near him. Yes. Yes, it is. The dark Aromenta replies before getting weirded out by the gigantic, dark-skinned man and quickly shuffling off to find another bench. Horus just sniffs at that. He'd gotten gold ingots from a nearby heavy metal asteroid, and they were stamped with the symbol of the Undaunted and had hidden the letter to the order under them, as is standard for how the dead drops are supposed to work. Lovely day, isn't it? He asks the code phrase he set up again as another Aromenta sits nearby. She stares at him and backs away. That's another no. Then, There's another presence to his immediate right, and at a glance he sees a fire Aromenta. Lovely day, isn't it? The sky's a little red today, she says, and he grins. There's the counter phrase. Perhaps we should take a walk? Lead the way, he says. The whole idea of the meeting was to get them out into a conversation with him, followed by letting them choose where to have the actual conversation. The woman has dark red skin, and her hair seems to be made of yellow flames that's been braided into a long tail that reaches down to her waist and stands out incredibly against her practical brown cloak. I must admit, she begins, I hadn't expected one of you to contact us. There are many ways to solve a problem, and no shame in asking for help. He replies, and she pauses before giving him an odd look. What? Nothing. This way, please, she states as she leads him away from the main streets and down into the dingier part of town. He notices flickers of movement around rooftops, and there's clearly several people following him, which is fair enough. He's got a whole team in a cloaked air car directly above, and ready to drop either ordnance or reinforcements at a moment's notice. She then leads him down into a dead-end alleyway and a pair of windows open to suddenly have a large patchwork blanket draped over the entrance. Sit down, you're too big for this to be subtle otherwise, she states, and he kneels down. Close enough. Now what do you want? I need to know how to have another contract canceled. I beg your pardon? Perhaps we should start over. You may call me The Voice. I speak for my organization. I am Captain Horace Blue. I'm the field officer of the Titan Squad posted to Lacron, Titan Squads being special forces units in the Undaunted. Horace introduces himself. Also, due to a great deal of convoluted nonsense, I am the brother of the giant Earthani Jasper Blue, also known as Emmanuel Skitterway. The oversized Earthani who broke the throne of Miru, stole the crown, kidnapped the queen, shattered the Holy Order of Light, and then proceeded to act as if it were the most natural thing to do? Yes, that one, Horace says with a grin. Do you have any idea how much we were paid to kill him? Enough that I already have 3. Horace begins before his communicator buzzes. Pardon. He checks it and grins. Make that 5 of your field agents in my custody. My brother has asked for mercy for your organization because he has a deep respect for competence and intelligence. But I'm entirely willing to order every member we captured killed if we can't come to a peaceful solution. When this meeting ends, I either have a price to call you and yours off, or I'm going to be throwing bodies into a mass grave. Well, I suppose I should thank you for being so upfront about things, she notes wryly. How is it your brother in arms has survived so long? Normally, the only warning people get of me and mine coming for them is when we fatally cut the throat. Oh, that's easy, Horace says as he pulls out a small case from a pocket in his jacket he then holds out to the Voice. Inside of that is a tuft of his fur. It's almost completely unbreakable, and he's covered in the stuff. So he has infallible armor on at all times, you're saying? And he's in friendly territory surrounded by skilled warriors and guards, and he's also combat trained to a degree that if he senses danger as he wakes, then it's not him that's in danger any longer. She outright scoffs at that explanation, but readily opens up the small case. Inside is a pinch of shimmering orani fur. I've met orani before. This fur is something different. He's the first primal orani. He is to the other moths as the serpent empress is to her daughters, Horus says, and she closes the container with a snap and looks up at him. She spends a moment searching his eyes before her eyebrows go up. Fifth knife. Test the claim that this fur is unbreakable. She says, holding out the case to the side, and a window opens. A hand darts out and grabs the container from her in a snap. If Horus wasn't as well trained as he was, it would have been a blink and you miss it scenario. But he instead recognized something very interesting about the arm. It was not the arm of an Arumenta. It was the arm of a Lirak. The voice lets out a little hum of interest. You understood. You have more than Arumenta in your organization. Sensible. You'd have a hard time blending into places where Arumenta are less common. Before we go further, I have 3 questions. The voice states and Horus nods. By all means. First, we have noticed the molting of the orani. Is Jasper responsible? Yes. When a species develops their first primal, it undergoes a powerful split, each one taking a small aspect of the primal's new power, but not the greatest power they have. You can already see this in the Nagasha and how the Serpent Empress has the greatest strengths of all of them, as well as a few of her own. Her eternal life and that magnificent hood, for example. Then I presume this shimmering fur and enormous size are the equivalent for a primal orani, the voice asks. Yes for the fur, no for the size. Or at least, we're not sure about the size. The size he has is a result of a technique we've learned from a species called the apuk. Imagine if fire Arumenta like yourself carried the flame within themselves rather than upon their hair and skin. Then further imagine a small pair of horns and a tail that would fit nicely on a Jorga. They have a very martial culture and value strength and humility. So much so that their weaker and less confident warriors use a technique to grow large and strong. But their greatest seem small and dainty. The Undaunted have learned this technique and are making use of it. Both Jasper and I are making use of it, as well as others. I see. How many other races are there? Many thousands. If one also counts the different cultures within them, we have many millions, if not billions, of different peoples. Trying to keep track of more than a handful is generally considered pointless, Horus says dismissively. The Serbo-born Apuk are a people that my people, the Undaunted, get along very well with, so they're flattered that we're using a technique of theirs. I see. Now? The voice begins before the window opens again. The container is tossed out at her and she catches it. Teacher, we've broken 3 knives, a sword, and melted the anvil beneath the fur. It is unharmed. A voice says from the inside, and the voice opens the container to see the little tuft of shimmering fur again. I see. How difficult would you think it is to kill an orani covered in this fur? Almost impossible. Only the claws, eyes, wings, and mouth would be vulnerable, and that's if the target stands still and refuses to fight back. The claws are just as invulnerable. His proboscis is a thing of terror and it comes out of his mouth. He's also protective of his wings and eyes, so it will provoke retaliation to attack them, Horus says. Teacher, may I speak freely? The Lirak inside the building asks. Speak, the voice says. There's no way that the Order has been paid enough to fight something invulnerable, let alone an invulnerable target with friends in combat training, she says. I agree, the voice states. I trust the knives you use were replaceable? The Lirak says. Can you excuse me a minute? I need to speak with my student a bit. Can you bring the knife pieces out, please? I know a trick to fixing damaged and destroyed equipment. Do you? Yes, I do. I'll even show you how as a gesture of goodwill, Horus offers. Quite generous. I agree with my brother when it comes to your organization. Competence and intelligence should be rewarded. So, here's a little reward. He offers and she gives him an odd look. You want more, don't you? I've seen this look in others. You want more than you're saying. You would make a good recruit or retainer for the Undaunted, Horace says simply. Really? That's your intention? You wish to hire us? The voice asks. The world is going to change a great deal soon. It's already changing, but that change is going to grow exponentially. The more locals we have to help guide it and the less damage these changes will do. However, much of Lakran has been shaped by the immense brain drain that has built up over the generations. As such, the people with real skill and intelligence are all the more valuable. And you place me in that category. Considering I had to spend a half hour talking to one of your people just to learn how to say hello, and your meeting has you trying to surround and isolate me just in case, I'd say you would qualify. Also, you've painted your face and are hiding your actual features. All I can tell is that you're a fire aeromenta, which means a sixth of Miru, the Goldlands and Greenstone. It doesn't exactly narrow it down when you can just cut your hair or wear a hat and be instantly someone else with the makeup off. So you can tell? Well spotted. She compliments him before regarding him again. What would you be asking of us if we were to be hired by you? Generally, at the moment, it's to get you on our side. There is no specific job I have lined up that needs an assassin. If I need something dead, I can kill it myself fairly reliably. With the size of your hands and arms, I don't doubt it. If you were to punch me, it'd be like getting hit with a battering ram. Just a battering ram? I need to bulk then. Implying you're going to get bigger? There's always room for improvement, Horace says, and she lets out a slight chuckle. With that attitude, you'd either get yourself killed or take over my organization if you were a normal girl. The voice remarks, and Horace chuckles in return. Now imagine an entire army of crazy fools like me, the ones that survived their madness to grow stronger, he says, and she lets out a breath of air. That sounds like the mountain clans, and we already have a policy of never taking a contract out on them, she remarks, which explains why a member of the mountain clans is always around the target. Magrika? She's adorable, Horace remarks. She's also my sister-in-law, sort of, but she's very attached to Emmanuel, although she has been busy of late. Which is probably why my girls chose now to strike. Actually, if they're to be believed, it's because now is the only time he's sat still long enough for them to try and stick something sharp in him. He's even more restless than the mountain clans. At first he had something to prove. Then, after that, he had momentum keeping him going, Horace remarks. Still, we're off topic. Let's talk about price and making sure that your agents know to stop trying to kill my brother. What's that going to take? Double the initial bounty, which is easily done by that stack of gold you paid for this meeting. I have a few letters to write and a few more agents to send out to retrieve our field agents. Also a marker to put on the door to your brother's chamber. That way we won't be... The voice states before a package is held out by the hands of a Lyric from the nearby window. Thank you. Now, you said something about a technique to fix things? Of course here, Horace says, taking the package and placing it on his knee. He opens it up to reveal a trinity of broken knives, and the voice lets out a hiss of displeasure. Now, pay attention. This is very useful. He picks up one of the knife handles and focuses. After a moment, one of the pieces shudders a bit and rattles against its fellows before snapping up to rejoin the main piece. This would be easier if it was all just one knife, but now I have to figure out what part belongs where. It's an interesting flow to your axiom. I'm not familiar with what it's doing. It's actually a combination of change and time effects. Time effects? Unless you know exactly how things were put together down to the tiniest little piece, you can't remake things perfectly without a time effect. Even then, it's generally easier to do it this way. Horace explains as another piece of the knife snaps back into place, followed by the last portion. The knife is now completely repaired and he holds it to the voice handle first. Very interesting. Could this be used to make new things from scratch? It's very intensive to do that. Generally, you need an Axiom specialist or some kind of shortcut to pull that off. That was not a no, or even AI cannot, she notes. No, it wasn't, he says. Very interesting. The voice notes.